Welcome to But Frankly Pierce News. I'm Arthur Fairview. Who doesn't love a good mystery? We love it so much we emulate it in Parlor and board games. The game of Clue, or Cluedo, as it's known across the pond, is, as they say, a jolly good time.
Why is he talking about a board game?
Never mind, he's on a roll.
Clue puts you in the role of a detective finding and solving clues to see which character is guilty of murder, a classic whodunit scenario, which is not unlike what is happening in Congress. On Friday, the Senate took up a vote on the House bill to form a January 6th commission to investigate fully the insurrection that interrupted the normal, peaceful transfer of power. On Thursday, May 27th, the family of fallen Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick came to Capitol Hill to lobby Republican lawmakers to vote for the January 6th commission. Officer Sicknick's mother, Gladys Sicknick, longtime partner Sandra Garza, Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn, and DC Metropolitan Police Officer Michael Fanone met with over a dozen Republican senators after initially requesting meetings with all 50 GOP senators.
They were getting beaten, fire extinguishers were thrown at them, they were being attacked by flagpoles. I mean, Mike and Officer Dunn here, or I should say Officer Fanone, they can basically tell you right now what they experienced, and it wasn't a tourist day. It wasn't tourists just passively walking by.
If January 6th didn't happen, Brian would still be here. Plain and simple.
Do you think you can change minds today?
I hope so. I hope so. It's supposed to uphold the Constitution, and right now I don't think they're doing it.
It's very disturbing that anyone would not want to support this. I mean, why would they not want to get to the bottom of such horrific violence?
What was your message to the families?
That they were heard, that what they had to say was very important.
There's no excuse for a Republican not to vote for this unless they don't want to hear the truth.
The Democrats could not overcome the filibuster, and the final vote was 54-35, with the majority of Republicans withholding the votes necessary to bring the bill up for debate.
Out of fear or fealty to Donald Trump, the Republican minority just prevented the American people from getting the full truth about January 6th. The Republican minority just prevented the Senate from even debating the bill.
Just 6 GOP senators joined the Democrats, leaving the measure short of the 60 votes needed to proceed.
Once again.
This kind of reminds me of something.
The family of Officer Sicknick were interviewed on CNN Friday after the vote. When asked how she felt about the lack of support after all the letters and the few conversations, she said, "They were very charming. They knew what they were doing. They knew how to talk to us."
I was disappointed, but I realized that was going to happen. I really did. It was just vibes that we got. They went through their motions, but you can tell that, underneath they were being nice to us.
This reveals several things. The cult of personality that has failed former President Trump has taken over the GOP. And many people in the legislature fear that he will prevent them from being reelected if they speak out against him in any way.
He cannot yet take physical form, but his spirit has lost none of its potency.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is scared, as it has been reported that 24 hours before the vote, Yertle the Turtle went to those Republicans he felt were wavering and asked them for a personal favor to vote against the bill.
Why?
How soon they forget.
We need fresh patriots abroad!
But why? Why vote against something the majority of the country wants?
It's the Republican way?
Perhaps, but it raises the question, who exactly is playing the role of detective in this case? Is there something more to it? It has been speculated from the beginning that certain members of Congress may have collaborated with the attackers. For example, tours of the Capitol were given on January 5th, which was a concerning departure from the procedures set in place of March of 2020. This creates many questions as to how and why it happened, but it may have provided certain information that was then passed on to certain people, as evidenced when the insurrectionists seemed to know exactly where to go in the maze of offices that make up the Capitol complex. Representative Mikey Sherrill of New Jersey had this to say.
I also intend to see that those members of Congress who embedded him, those members of Congress who had groups coming through the Capitol that I saw on January 5th, a reconnaissance for the next day, those members of Congress that incited this violent crowd, those members of Congress that attempted to help our president undermine our democracy. I'm going to see that they're held accountable, and if necessary, ensure that they don't serve in Congress.
As such, it has been suggested by lawmakers that certain individuals have a lot to lose from a bipartisan commission looking further into these events. Many suggest that the timing of the commission would have a negative impact on those seeking re-election in 2022. Illinois Senator Dick Durbin spoke to this on the Senate floor the day of the vote.
Let's get down to basics here. Many of the Republican members are afraid of the man who incited this mob. They are afraid of the former president and what he'll say of them if we call for an investigation. They're afraid of Donald Trump. And as a result, they're refusing to let this commission be formed. Are they worried that this investigation into what happened on January 6th will hurt Republicans in the next year's election? I think the position they're taking, opposing an investigation, will hurt them.
So this group of people value their political careers over their lives or the lives of their colleagues, let alone the Constitution that they are sworn to protect.
We've got to protect our phony baloney job, gentlemen. We must do something about this immediately. Harumph.
But frankly, Pierce News is dedicated to getting to the bottom of this story. And sometimes that means looking from a different perspective, illuminating things in a way that most would be uncomfortable doing. To delve deeper into this story, perhaps we should go a bit old school?
Shall we play a game?
Let's take a look at the cast of characters in the game. Mr. Green.
Is that what we ate?
Mrs. White.
I hated her so much.
Professor Plum.
Oh, shucks.
Colonel Mustard.
Are you trying to make me look stupid?
Miss Scarlet.
Who are you? Perry Mason.
Mrs. Peacock.
Great idea. I'll leave first.
And of course, Mr. Body.
If you denounce me to the police, you will also be exposed and humiliated.
There are many clues to be looked at and directed, but without a formal bipartisan commission, will it have the strength to stand up? Can members of Congress that aided and abetted be found out and prosecuted? Will we ever be able to hold an election without the shadow of this horrific event hanging over our heads?
The sword of Damocles is hanging over my head.
To make matters worse, and with a sense of ironic timing, on the same day the Senate killed that bill, a 4-day QAnon conference called For God and Country Patriot Roundup took place in Dallas.
Why is it always Dallas?
It featured keynote speakers that seemed to be handpicked from the sideshow that was the failed former president's administration. Retired General Michael Flynn, attorney Sidney Powell, Lynn Wood, and George Papadopoulos.
Now what do those folks have in common?
I wonder.
On a side note, the recent coup in Burma.
It's Myanmar now.
Sorry, Myanmar. That took place on February 1st, ousted a democratically elected government and resulted in mass protests and violence. Security forces have killed 840 people since the coup, according to figures from activists cited by the United Nations. However, the military junta says about 300 people have died. The military, known as the Tatmadaw, says it seized power because of fraud in a November election won by Aung San Suu Kyi's ruling party.
Wait, what?
This sounds way too familiar.
For months, QAnon supporters have been praising the military coup in Burma.
Myanmar,
that overturned a democratically elected government and calling for such a coup here. During retired General Flynn's speech at this QAnon-palooza, an audience member who identified himself as a simple Marine asked why what happened in Myanmar can't happen here. The crowd cheered, and Flynn replied,
No reason. I mean, it should happen. No reason.
When the video clip of the exchange went viral, Flynn's verified Parler account called the idea he had called for a coup a bold-faced fabrication based on twisted reporting.
Isn't that treason?
Sure sounds like it to me.
When Sidney Powell had her moment on stage, she took the ball and ran with it, suggesting failed former President Trump should be immediately reinstated, with the caveat that there would be no way to make up for lost time.
That he can simply be reinstated, that a new inauguration date is set. And Biden is told to move out of the White House, and President Trump should be moved back in. I'm sure there's not going to be credit for time lost, unfortunately, because the Constitution itself sets the date for inauguration. But he should definitely get the remainder of his term and make the best of it, that's for sure.
In this reporter's humble opinion, this is terrifying. It seems the only way forward is to rely on the congressional committees and the Department of Justice to sort this whole thing out. But in the end, there is just one thing.
One thing.
So, who done it? Was it Mr. Body with the microphone in the ellipse? Was it Mrs. White in the hallway of the Capitol with a tweet or unscheduled tour? Perhaps it was a collaborative effort.
They all did it.
This has been But Frankly Pierce News. Thanks for watching. I'm Arthur Fairview. So the kids, they dance, they shake their bones, and the politicians throwing stones, singing ashes, ashes, all fall down.
Ashes, ashes, all fall down.